Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? My name is Gianna Patriarca, and I'm here to read a few poems for you. I want to thank the Art Bar for inviting me to do this. They've been so wonderfully supportive throughout my whole career, and it's always a pleasure to read for everyone. And thank you to the organizers for all that you do. I want to read from my new collection, which was launched this past November, called To the Men Who Write Goodbye Letters from Ainana Publications. And I want to dedicate this reading to the editor and publisher Luciana Ricciutelli, who unfortunately passed away just a month after this book was launched on December 14th. She was a woman who championed so many voices that would otherwise not be heard, and such a wonderful, supportive human being. And I will miss her terribly, and I thank her. And so this reading is for her. Uh, the um, the book is divided into three sections. It's a book about loss, and who of us has not experienced loss in many forms. Um, and I wanted to address loss not in an analytical and academic way, but I wanted to give it the poetry that it deserves and often doesn't get. So the first section is To the Men Who Write Goodbye Letters. The second is called Parts of Her. And the third section deals with the loss of my mom just 2 years ago, at the age of 94. And I, uh, I hope you find something in the poetry, and that it gives you some pleasure or a moment of thought. The first poem I will start with is called They Tell Me, and it has a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, which says, "It is time to be old. The time has come without invitation to be pushing grandchildren on park swings, putting high heel shoes in boxes for goodwill, clearing out closets, lighting a match to the thousand photographs, leaving things clean, orderly, so sons and daughters will not have to deal with the clutter. Unrealized dreams, unnecessary in the end, they tell me. There are no grandchildren." And the child says, "Mother, get a dog." Dogs frighten me. But I will pack up the shoes, the coats, the dusty toys. I will empty the drawers of things. But the photographs, they are proof it all happened the way I remember it. They will have to burn later. If you live in Toronto, then you may have at some point strolled down Cumberland Avenue in Yorkville, as I often do. And this is a poem called On Cumberland. Strolling down Cumberland in Yorkville an October afternoon, I spotted a scarf in the window of a fancy boutique, crimson red with white polka dots, just like the one Mama bought for 50 cents at Honest Ed's years ago. Nostalgia, or simply because I love polka dots? I sauntered into the shop, draped it over my shoulders, looked in the designer mirror. It suited me the way it had suited my mother when she wore it only on Sundays. I glanced at the price tag. Mama wouldn't approve. I put it back on the shoulders of the velvet mannequin who wore it elegantly, without memory. And I grew up an Italian Catholic girl at a time when religion was pretty much, let's just say, strong. Maybe for me right now it's not so strong. This is a poem called Not So Catholic. My sister is off again, traveling the globe, pilgrimages, shrines, sacred beads, blessings around the world, making sure the soul will be well protected for eternity. Holy mothers and saints appear in faraway places. They welcome her devotion, her faith, the rhetoric of words and wallets. I sit with our mother each day on a well-worn chair in her kitchen with one window, looking out into the garden, her hand-washed laundry drying. Between coffee and orange slices, I listen to her history, our history. My soul, much less secure in its destination. And this is a poem. My mother was married as a very young girl to a Sicilian young man, and it was her first love. And he was not my father. My father was second love, but this poem is called First Love. My mother's first love had Sicilian eyes. He took her to his island across the Strait of Messina, a place where the volcano still smokes and rumbles. In the hills of Chiaramonte, high above the sea, she would find home. The shoeless Ciociara girl who had filled his eyes that Sunday in the piazza back in 1943. He made a promise to return when the guns were quiet. That September, when the sky was still, the world breathed again, he walked the gravel road, brought her ripe figs, white lace, the Mediterranean blue in his Sicilian eyes. The next section speaks of 10 days in January. 10 days that took my mom to pass away in palliative care. This is a poem called Good Daughters, and it has a quote by New Zealand poet Jenny Bornholt, which says, "It was a year of great sadness in the garden. Good daughters are caretakers, keepers of secrets. They know the best hiding places. They share only the necessary. Monsoons will come, seasons of hail and harvest inevitable. Good daughters organize, learn to lie well." My mother was a great gardener, and she always used to yell at me for not being able to dig the right holes or plant the plants deep enough. And this is a poem called The Garden My Mother Left Me. Last year, I turned the soil for you, pushed that spade down into the dry ground, lifted the chunks, beat the clay, raked, watered it till it was smooth. You watched, sitting beneath the green umbrella, hating every second you could not do it yourself, impatient, Couldn't resist the challenge. You lifted yourself from the plastic chair in your pain and blue wool slippers, took possession of the spade, moved me out of the way, showed me the proper technique. I could never get it right. It's that weekend in May again, the umbrella in place, your empty chair beneath its shade, the wool slippers folded. This year, it's all up to me. Um, the first part of the book, To the Men Who Write Goodbye Letters, had a few friends who decided to leave, made that decision themselves. This is called Pure Luck for Anthony. He believed it was all just luck. Maybe it was. Some people are magnets, an unexplained energy, a charisma that ignites. But it might have been a weak force, a wrong connection, or all that self-love missing. Who knows where it all comes from? The need to bite into life and have all the flavors hold you hostage until the luck runs out. In that back room, this is a longer prose type poem, which I had decided was going to be a short story, but poetry tends to take over when it wants to. In that back room. In that back room, 3 flights up, with the rusted hot plate, burnt espresso pot, 2 unsteady chairs, you wrote the letter. All the bottles you had emptied, a glass courtyard for roaches, fat mice drunk on your leftovers, they kept you company. There among the ghosts you inherited, the ones you invited to share your bed, all the poetry that kept you sane or not, you picked up the pen. There, where the days were nights and the nights were days, you bled each drop a leaky faucet, and she watched it stain everything. Did you find time to fill all the notebooks with brilliant words, scribble the beginnings of song lyrics, document the great poems beneath the quarantine stars of that island? You escaped to become the god of your heart, breathtaking in your charm and solid flesh. You were anointed, you conceded. But the Greek sky sometimes succumbs to violent rain, and even the luckiest and most resilient can lose their amulet in the rush for cover. She came across an old white cotton shirt. Your face jumped inside her head. She finds it necessary to remember you. Now, she isn't sure whose shirt it is. Might have been yours, but you never made love in white cotton shirts. Those were reserved for the lovers you tortured her with. She's lonely, losing her hair, needs to empty the drawers of everything. She's moving to a smaller space, not a physical one, but one that will not keep her awake nights. Perhaps it resembles the space you moved into not long before you wrote that letter, when you had made up your mind. She's not sure. She'll walk around it a while, fold the white shirt, leave it on the chair. She's unpacked the last box you inhabited, the one behind the unclaimed books that were never read, tried to unravel the 2 gold chains wrapped in the lace handkerchief, one missing the middle. What to do with them? The photographs, they will make a glowing fire. She recalls the story you told her, how images on paper would haunt forever unless devoured in flames. Your mother burned funeral announcements of dead relatives in the backyard fire pit, all those cards of Christ, saints, and Virgin Marys. She set on fire after finding your note, their charcoal spirits swept away by the wind. It didn't help her. She knew you better than your mother did. You inherited all of the fears, your eternal communion with ancestors. She was just there to clean up the mess. Um, the the next poem, let me see here. Dismantling the Dollhouse. Dismantling the Dollhouse. I would have played in the dollhouse. I would have lived there for you, become the princess in the ceramic cups, the one with the chocolate curls and pink lips, if I could have. I would have worn the Sicilian lace and rubbed myself raw with sweet lemons, become old with history, become your history, if I could have. I would have pleased you, reconstructed dreams of your ancient playgrounds where daughters wore dresses and sons did not. Instead, the world will know my heartaches, my triumphs, offered in words on pages, to read, to analyze. But some hurts I need to keep just for myself. The next poem is for my father. My father was very influential in my life. I didn't really meet him again until I was 9, when he had left us in Italy to come to Canada when I was just a little thing. And so it was a lifetime of learning to love a father that I didn't really remember. But this is called Mean Poems for My Father. My father never heard me read a poem, never heard my voice recite love or anger. He heard the clicking of the typewriter keys late at night. The walls of our modest house were thin, and I typed all night long on that Olivetti Underwood he bought for me at Mastrangelo's Gifts when I was 16. The greatest gift he ever gave me, and I used it to write all those mean poems about him. Sometimes I typed out my fears, my impossible dreams, collected them on paper, and placed them in the bottom drawer of my desk, the drawer with the miniature silver key, the one I lost among all the clutter. Um, I'm not sure how much time I have used up. They say I have half an hour, and sometimes half an hour seems to be a long, long time to read poetry. But if you can stand it, then I will go on. The title poem, To the Men Who Write Goodbye Letters, is dedicated to a friend of mine. And let me read it for you. To the men who write goodbye letters, for Rosario. Only fucked up romantics write letters that become poems. You were young. Your heart was too large to accept anything less than grace, anything less than light. You crumbled. I'm old now. You would not know me. I don't write letters. I organize, I sanitize, I live in a clean house. My heart is overweight with secrets and silence. I wish you had written that letter to me back then. I might have convinced you exiting was the wrong thing to do. I might have talked you into hanging around so you too could have watched the end of grace, the end of light. But you wanted to leave when you were still beautiful, didn't you? Charming the Demons has a quote by Luciano Jacobelli which says, I should be learning how to die, rehearsing my final nakedness. He summons death in all the spaces he occupies, catering to demons and angels who hang about, drifting among the leaves and stones of their final home, leaving his manufactured words on bits of paper, sticky notes pasted onto famous graves, wanting to conjure the spirit of great poets, the legends, hoping the dust of their souls will make him immortal. When I was visiting the US a few years back, I was in San Francisco, in the old Italian neighborhood where Ferlinghetti has his City Lights bookstore, of which my book was on the shelf, by the way, and I bought it. I noticed the changes and how the influence of my Italian culture had left signs in the neighborhood. Anyway, this poem came out of it. It's called Reading Ferlinghetti in North Beach. A different kind of goodbye. Any one of us cursed with memory weeps for all that is past. Maybe it was a better time, a better place. Maybe it wasn't. But it is gone, taking with it our quick legs, glorious skin. We cry into the dry spaces left behind. All over America, all that remains, the colors we brought, red, white, green. The rest is interpreted and reinterpreted until the taste is dull. It will happen here soon enough. This far north, we will be the America they mistook us for. We will be so smooth of our moles and warts. We'll have spit out the last olive pit. We will be unrecognizable. We will belong to nothing. And I am going to leave you with a poem. I was just recently reading the last book of poetry by Margaret Atwood, and I must say it is amazingly beautiful. And I think she might have been the one who said this line. I can't quite recall, but the title is Die So I Can Write About It. I don't recall who wrote the line, some poet, an important one, perhaps. I forget a lot of things lately. Makes it easier now to forgive. You left for a good reason, I think, I hope. Maybe you needed a first kill to write. Was I too loud, too fat, too awkward? My voice too clear, it frightened you? You needed to be the clever one, creative, ingenious, living your happiness as a myth, a parable. Was I too foreign? You wanted a piece of me to complete your heart, but I hadn't been murdered yet. You danced me to the stairwell. I lacked grace. I stumbled. Was it your hand that pushed me, that held me down? Sunlight on a tired body, a vacancy, light enough to dispose. We wander backwards towards our sins, surveying, find only the grief, the guilt in all the hollow spaces. I want to thank you very much for listening and for supporting the Art Bar, for supporting poetry, and for continuing to give a voice to those who are often shrouded in silence. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon. And thank you, everyone at the Art Bar. And arrivederci, everyone. Ciao.